Mercedes Schlapp, wonderful to have you on American
Good to
Thought
be here.
Leaders.
Thank you for having me.
So, you were the White House Director of Strategic Communications for, I think it's about a year and a half. Tell me a little bit about your time at the White House.
Well, it was truly a remarkable time. I got to spend a lot of time with the president and really got to see him in action. And one thing I noticed early on is that when he wants to get something accomplished, he works hard on it and he gets it done. We saw this obviously when they passed the tax reform legislation, and as well as what he's working on the China trade deals as well. I mean, for the president, he never stops working. And I find that to be just fascinating. It's such an intense job and it's such an intense environment.
So, being in charge of communications for the White House in this environment, it seems like a challenge. What would you say to that?
Well, I think, at the end, the president is the ultimate communicator in chief. And he would provide us direction as to what the message would be of the day. And obviously it was very clear normally through the president's Twitter, but just the opportunity to talk with him about ideas of whatever the topic would be, whether it be a domestic issue or a foreign policy issue. It was always, what I always felt is I was listened to. And for sometimes presidents, and I would say a lot of politicians say they know better than everybody else. And what I found with the president is he was always willing to take your advice. At the end, he would make the decision, but it was always, I thought, very much being in partnership with the president on this.
So now you're with the Trump 2020 campaign. What do you think what would you say the key messages are right now that you want to get across?
Sure, the key messages are promises made, promises kept. The other second message is the fact that what we're seeing in the Democratic Party is disarray. We're seeing a party that wants to decide that they want to go further left out of the mainstream, where even moderate Democrats are questioning, do I belong to this party? And so I think that the president's his record's gonna speak for itself, where we have seen tremendous success from an economic standpoint, where our economy is continuing to grow, where we've seen wages rise, and where we're seeing communities being uplifted, in addition to a large number of accomplishments on the foreign policy side as well. So I think this president is one who, when he says he wants to get something done, he will get it done. The question is, will the Democrats continue to be that obstacle? And so far they have been. They're more focused on impeachment than they are on legislating.
We're seeing a number of people noticing some of these accomplishments that the administration has had, but we're also seeing a lot of those same people lamenting the fact that a lot of America doesn't know. What would you say to the success or lack of success of the message getting out?
Well, I think the president does his best in communicating directly to the American people. Obviously through social media, which plays a big part of it.
Right.
But there is a lot of noise. And we see this through the mainstream media, and in a lot of cases, the liberal media, that want to push one agenda alone. And that is their desire and their basically hatred towards this president. And what we see with this president is that they don't want to talk about the accomplishments. The media doesn't want to talk about it. And when you're looking at the fact that this president, for example, has been able to overhaul the criminal justice system, where he's been able to push forward opportunity zones that help low-income communities be able there to be investments in their communities so that they can grow, where he's pushing school choice so that parents have the ability to figure out where their kids should go to school and give them the opportunity. I mean, the president really wants to do as much as he can for the American people. The problem is, obviously, we live in this divided government, and so the Democrats have no interest for a long time, and I was there and I saw it in person, no interest in helping this president. And so what's happening is that the Democrats have no desire to solve these major problems in America.
So there's a lot of people right now calling the president a racist, and there's a lot of people that are basically, don't know what to think about it. What do you say? What would you say to that?
I've spent a lot of time with the president. The president is not a racist. The president is someone who is compassionate. He is there for helping the forgotten man and woman. I mean, he spends his time figuring out what policies will benefit the United States of America. It is his philosophy of America first, and that's what he's been focused on, is how can we strengthen from within. And so what's happened is that you've seen these Democrats at any time, anything the president does to even be critical of, let's say, a congresswoman, that they automatically go to the race card. And so I think people have to be careful that they don't use that term racist loosely. And that is what I find is happening in our society, sadly. Because I do think that, the president, he's going to be critical of Congresswoman Omar as much as he's critical of Senator Chuck Schumer. He's not going to stay quiet if you have some of these congresswomen or men calling for his impeachment. He's going to say something. And the response of the Democrats is predictable. It's always the same. It's that Trump is a racist, and that I just think is just unfortunate.
It seems it's gone even further because there's a number of voices that are saying, well, even if you support the president, then that means you're racist too.
Right.
What do you say to that?
I mean, it's just, we've seen this. This is, again, the predictability of the left. This is the fact that they have no desire to engage in meaningful policy discussions, that it's easier to call someone a name. And so they get stuck with those individuals who support Donald Trump are racist. Well, let me tell you, I know of a lot of blacks, I know of a lot of Hispanics who really love Donald Trump, who really believe that Donald Trump is doing the right thing for America. So for them to just claim this word and just throw it out there, I think is very troubling.
A highlight from your 1.5 years at the White House, what comes to mind?
There's so many highlights. I mean, I think one of the more stressful moments is when the president gave his first Oval Office address. And I was there to help orchestrate it with Sarah Sanders, Bill Shine, and several other individuals, and just being involved in the speechwriting process. And when he declared the national emergency. And that was, putting that production together was just an interesting experience. And again, it's a fact that he engages you, that he wants to know what are your thoughts on the speech, or how should we make this better. And I feel like what I've learned from the president is that he listens. He's not like politicians, again, that tell you we should do this or do that. No, he actually listens to what the concerns and the needs are of the American people. And then his job has been to execute and be able to accomplish what we need to ensure that Americans have a better life and live the American dream. And that's what we're seeing under President Trump's leadership. You
were running communications in this very, difficult media environment, as you were describing. What prompted you to shift over to the campaign side? Was it your choice? Someone else asked you? What happened?
It was a logical transition at the time. I had spoken to Jared Kushner weeks before, and we had talked about moving over to the campaign. As a mother of 5 kids, I was putting in a lot of work hours, and it was really a moment in time where I almost feel liberated, because on the campaign we're able to really address the flaws of the Democratic presidential candidates, something you can't do when you're in the White House. So I really have been able to enjoy the transition, although it's been a couple of days that I've been out, in being able to speak the truth about what we're seeing in terms of these Democrat presidential candidates and their weaknesses, and how the fact that what they're going to offer to America is sending us down a dangerous path that could clearly lead to socialism, because that's where so much of their party is right now.
Does anyone stand out to you as a possible challenger to the president on that side?
Look, I think the president's willing to take any of them on. He's prepared. I think in terms of the Democrats, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously you see Biden and Kamala in a stronger position, as well as Warren. But that's going to be up to the Democrats to decide how far left they want to go. But what they're offering right now, when you're talking about health care for illegal aliens, when you're talking about the Green New Deal, when you're talking about let's take away your private health insurance, it really is too far to the left, where I think even mainstream Democrats get concerned.
In that case, what would you say is a challenge the campaign faces? What is something that you feel you have to overcome at this point?
I don't see a challenge right now. I think that right now we're in a very strong position from a financial standpoint. We've raised so much money in the last quarter, so financially we're strong. We're building a very sophisticated grassroots structure, as well as the social media presence. And really, Brad, our campaign manager, he's ready, and he just has more energy than anyone else I've ever met. But I find that we're in a much stronger position than, let's say, 2016, where the president barely had a structure in place. So we are 10 steps ahead of the game. You have the Democrat Party literally in a quarrel where you have all these candidates trying to define themselves. And so they have a big challenge because they got to figure out who's going to lead their way, and they don't have agreement. We do have agreement, and we're in a strong position into the election year.
Is this part of the president's strategy? A lot of people are saying this, that to basically make the squad, so to speak, the face of the Democratic Party?
Look, I think that the squad basically made that decision that they wanted to be front and center. I mean, it starts with AOC, making her video of dancing and trying to gain political fame. They obviously have made an imprint in that party, and what's happened is that they are becoming the voices that the Democrats are listening to, and the Democrats, and look, Nancy Pelosi's in a difficult position. She doesn't agree a lot of times with them, and they've literally implied that she's a racist. So not only have they said the president's a racist, but they also said that their leader of their own party is a racist. That's incredibly problematic. So at the end, the president, he didn't like them calling Nancy a racist, and the president doesn't like the policies and their ideas and their statements that are very troubling when it comes to everything from what their views are on terrorism, what their views are on Israel, and what their views are on law enforcement and legal immigration, where they're so extreme and should be highlighted so that the American people can see the truth of the Democrat Party.
We're going to have to finish up in a moment, but any final words?
No, I have to say it's a great honor to be here at Turning Point. I feel like I've seen Charlie Kirk grow, to be able to see so many high schoolers, so many young people who want to learn and want to see for themselves like how they can be a voice in our great democracy. And I just think that's wonderful to see as we see Turning Point grow. And I know President Trump will be coming and speaking to them, and I'm sure I know he did it at one other event where he hugged the American flag, and maybe he'll do it again this time and hug the American flag, because there's one thing I will tell you about this president. He loves America so much, and he wants to make sure that we're able to preserve the greatness of America for the next generations. Thank you.
Mercedes Schlapp, such a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, thank you so much.